Hi everyone, and thanks very much for joining the latest Commsave Educates webinar. Today's subject is getting into the savings habit, and we're going to be talking about something simple but powerful. It's how to actually build a savings system that works for you. So what I want to do over the next 10 to 15 minutes or so is try to simplify the concept of saving, because for most people the problem isn't understanding that saving is important, it's actually making it happen consistently. And this session is about helping to make saving feel achievable, realistic, and something that fits into your life as it is today, not something you have to completely overhaul everything for. So here's the reality. Most people don't struggle because they don't know how to save. They struggle with consistency. And it's very easy to assume that that means a lack of discipline or motivation, but usually that's not the case. More often, it's because there's no system in place. So saving is left as something you'll get to at the end of the month, and of course by then all your other priorities have taken effect. So instead of relying on willpower, which naturally fluctuates, the goal is to build a structure that makes saving easy, even when life gets busy or expensive. And this shift from relying on intention to relying on systems is what makes saving sustainable. Let me quickly walk you through what we'll cover today. Firstly, we'll touch on why saving actually matters. Then we'll look at why so many people actually struggle to save, even when they fully intend to. From there, we'll talk about how habits really work, because saving is ultimately a behaviour, not just a financial decision. And then I'll introduce a very simple framework that you can use immediately, followed by some practical strategies that you can take and implement straight away. By the end of this, you should feel confident, not just about saving in theory, but about taking your first steps in a way that actually sticks. So let's look at the whole concept of building financial resilience. When we talk about saving, people immediately think just about money, but it's actually much more about freedom and security. Savings give you breathing room. They reduce stress when unexpected expenses come up, whether that's car repairs, broken appliance, or something bigger. They also give you options. So maybe it's the ability to take time off, to make a career move, or to simply not feel trapped financially. And importantly, saving helps you move from reactive to proactive. You're no longer constantly responding to financial pressure. So while saving might feel like a restriction in the short term, in reality it's one of the biggest ways to create flexibility and control in your life. Let's acknowledge some of the most common barriers, because they are very real. The first is I don't earn enough. And while income absolutely matters, saving is often more about patterns than absolute numbers. Then there's lifestyle creep, where spending increases as income increases, often without us noticing. Another big one is lack of structure. If saving isn't clearly planned, it tends to get squeezed out. And finally, short-term thinking, prioritizing today's wants over our future needs. The key thing here is that you don't need to eliminate all of these challenges. Instead, we build a system that works around them so they don't completely derail your progress. So let's look at how habits actually really work. Saving is fundamentally a habit, and habits work very differently from motivations. Motivation comes and goes. Some months you feel focused, other months not so much. Habits, on the other hand, create consistency regardless of how you feel. And importantly, habits are built through small, repeated actions, not big occasional efforts. So saving £20 every month is far more powerful than saving £200 once and then stopping. What we're aiming for here is consistency over intensity. Once something becomes automatic, it requires much less effort to maintain. That's when saving stops feeling like a chore and starts becoming just part of how you manage your money. So let's look at a simple system to start saving. Here's the core framework I want you to take away today. It's simple but very effective. First, pay yourself first. Save before you spend anything else. Second, automate everything. Remove the need to make repeated decisions. And thirdly, start small. Don't wait for the perfect amount. And finally, increase gradually as things become comfortable. This approach works because it removes friction and decision making, which are often the biggest obstacles. If you try to save manually each month, you'll end up negotiating with yourself, but with this system in place, saving happens in the background and your lifestyle naturally adjusts around it. So let's look at some of these steps in a little bit more detail. Pay yourself first is one of the most important mindset shifts that you can make. Most people pay all their bills and expenses, then try to save what's left, if anything is left. Instead, flip that around. Treat your savings like a non-negotiable expense, just like rent or a utility bill. Even if it's a small amount, the act of prioritising it changes how you manage the rest of your money. And what you'll often find is you naturally adapt your spending to what remains. It becomes your new normal. So this isn't about depriving yourself, it's about putting your future self on the same level of importance as your current obligations. Looking next at automation, if there's one practical step that makes the biggest difference, it's automation. Setting up an automatic transfer means that your savings happen without you having to think about it each month. A really effective approach is to move money into a separate savings account immediately after you've been paid. That way it's out of sight and out of mind. It reduces the chance that you'll spend it unintentionally. Automation turns saving from something you have to remember to do into something that just happens consistently and reliably. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is setting their savings target too high at the beginning. This often leads to frustration or even giving up altogether. Instead, focus on starting small. £10, £25, £50, whatever feels manageable to you. The goal at this stage really isn't about the amount, it's about building the habit. Small wins build confidence, and confidence builds momentum. Once saving feels normal and manageable to you, you can then gradually increase the amount you're saving over time. Think of it as like building a muscle. You don't start with the heaviest weight, you build up to it, and the same principle applies here. And then to make your savings habits stick for the long term, consistency is key. One simple way to do that is to link it directly to your payday, so it becomes part of your financial routine. Tracking your progress can also be really motivating. Even seeing small amounts accumulate can reinforce your savings behaviour. And it's also important to celebrate milestones, whether that's your first £100 or your first £1,000. And then as your financial situation improves, look to gradually increase your contributions. These small adjustments over time can make a really significant difference without ever needing to feel overwhelming. So what would some easy actions be that you could take today? Firstly, let's bring this into something practical you can do straight away after this session. First, decide on a realistic savings amount, even if it's small. Second, set up or choose a dedicated savings account. Third, automate the transfer, ideally just after you get paid. And finally, commit to starting this week, not next month, not when things feel perfect. The most important step is simply getting started. Once the system is in place, you can always refine and improve it, but without that first step, nothing changes. So let's look at some key takeaways from this session. I'd like to leave you with this thought. You don't need more money to start saving. What you need is a system. It's easy to think I'll start saving when I earn more, but without a system, higher income often just leads to higher spending. Building the habit now at any level sets you up for long-term success. Because once the habit's in place, it scales with you automatically as your income increases. So don't wait for the perfect moment, focus on creating a simple system that works for you today. Thank you very much for your time in watching this webinar. I hope you found it useful and practical. The key takeaway is that saving doesn't have to be complicated or overwhelming. Small, consistent actions can create meaningful change over time. If you take just one step after this webinar, you're making progress. So thank you very much for watching Commsave Educates. Please do leave us a comment. Remember to like the video and subscribe. And do also download our Commsave Educates app, which is free to use. It's got lots of learning pathways and information about all different types of money management, and we'd love for you to download that and get using it to continue your learning journey with us. Thanks for joining.